Good afternoon. This is Cedar with Market Mastermind and Mind Over Matter, the psychology of trading. We're going to talk today about true wealth because I see a lot of focus on I need to make money. And yes, we definitely want this business to be profitable, but looking at the bigger picture, net out because it's about the whole person, not just about focus on money. And so I'll be recording this session and posting it in our trading psychology channel, just in case you miss it or are coming in later. So there's really 5 pillars for me, and these were built off of core values, personal core values, and we'll go into some of that in a little bit, but I want to run through my 5 key pieces. So number 1 is mental, which is my purpose, my relationships with others, but my mental health, the mental aspect of how things are going. Number 2 is spiritual. So spirituality can have religion as a focused practice, or it can be connection with source or universe or whatever that is, meditation, that kind of thing. And physical, of course, taking care of yourself, making sure you're exercising and getting up from your desk and doing maybe some breath practice. We're going to go more into depth on all of these, but I wanted to touch them all up. Number 4 is financial. So making sure that you are financially stable. And number 5 is emotional. And there's a difference between the purpose and relationships for number 1. So the mental part, purpose and relationships. Number 5, emotional health, ties back to everything 1 through 4, because it's what is going to impact how you interact everywhere else. So let's jump right into it. So I want to talk about, from a purpose perspective, I see a lot of traders really kind of have a single-sided experience where they're behind a screen all the time and focused on making money, which again is important. But is there fulfillment in trading? And for me, my fulfillment comes not from making money. My fulfillment comes from helping other traders learn how to manage their accounts and be able to teach the things that I wish somebody would have taught me many years before. So you've got to find a purpose. And I've talked about this some in previous episodes, but your group should always be, and group, not like what we have here, but who you're surrounded by, is you should always have people better than you, more experienced, whatever it is. You should have your peers, and you should have people with less experience that you can help. And sometimes fulfillment in trading just comes from helping answer questions, or somebody maybe in your family or community or your circle that is thinking about getting into trading, and just giving them a little bit of just support and feedback. Because a lot of times we as traders, when we talk to our family and our circle about trading, they just laugh at us and tell us we're gamblers and oh, I can't believe you do that, and that kind of response. However, you are going to come across some who are like, that's interesting. And so you're going to learn your TA better by teaching it to somebody else. So take a half an hour and teach somebody what you know. Next part is the peers, where we can be equally looking at things. So similar experience possibly, or time, or whatever, because then you feel like that community piece. And that's really Market Mastermind is what I want to have the focus be. Is we've got peers, we've got traders in here who've been trading as long as me, some of them longer. And I'm 22 years as of last February. And we have some traders who are full-time, we have some that are part-time. But the idea is the balance altogether. We can help those who are struggling, whether they've been trading for 30 years and still struggling because they're out there. And then also making sure that you're trying to learn new things. And I would suspect that those of you in Market Mastermind are here as part of all of those aspects. And that is purpose. Relationships, of course, because we're not face to face, really are going to come more from you guys knowing me and what I talk about. I don't know a lot of you, I'll know a little bit about your background, that kind of thing. So for me, in number one, the mental part, relationships go back to family. And not everybody has kids, not everybody's married. But the idea is that can be your community, it can be your church, which ties in with the spiritual part, or it can be a running group that you're part of, ties into the fitness part. It can be anything that you do that's outside of trading. Because when it comes to the end of the day, we're doing this so that our world outside of the screens is more fulfilled, more relaxed. We're not doing it to sit in front of a screen forever. And while I love charts, I still dream about them. Like, I love charts. It is really important that we step away and make sure that we're balancing out those relationships and not turning into workaholics, which happens pretty easily if you're trading futures, 23.5, you could be obsessed with it and end up driving away the loved ones in your life that are the very why, the very reason that you want to be successful trading. And that's true of any business, anything that you do. If you don't balance it out, you're going to end up in trouble, most likely. So we want to think about true wealth being a bank account. It's the same idea. We focus on money a lot, so why not take the concepts of those 5 pillars and think about them from the aspect of, are you making deposits or withdrawals in each of those areas? And you could even just say, I'm going to go an even 20%, because if it's 5 pillars, all right, I'm going to go 20%. And I'm going to go rate myself in each of these areas and pick the 1 or 2 that I'm really struggling with. So you might be trading extremely well, lots of profit, super happy. So that one gets the highest score for financial. But then you get to the mental part, relationships and purpose, and you're leaving things just like at a slow simmer. You're disengaged, you're on your phone when you're not on your screens. That's going to impact your overall true wealth. So think about true wealth as your bank account for you. So pretty important that we look at some things like ego involved in trading and involved in what that deposit withdrawal concept is. If your ego is driving you to be so aggressively successful in one of those areas, you're going to end up in trouble. And the last thing you want to do is be ultra successful and have a heart attack by yourself because you didn't take care of fitness or the physical part, and you didn't take the time away from the screens to be with those that really are what matter. And that can be your animals. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't even like people. I've got my dogs and that's it. Cool, that's it. Taking the time to be away from the screens is going to be really important. So we're programmed really in our society to consume. We're programmed to make the money so we can show how much money we have, which is weird. I think that's very strange. I will tell you that some of the most wealthy people that I know drive 20-year-old cars. Their tennis shoes probably have a hole in them. They probably had them for like 6, 8, 10 years. They're comfortable. They're fine. They don't have anything to prove to anybody. So they're focused on producing experiences and being engaged and living in life, and don't have to beat the Joneses, don't have to show off. It's literally about quality of life, and things do not make quality of life. So cars, clothes, to impress people who don't even matter. Think about it. If you're buying things, if you're getting a new car every 2 years because you want to be perceived as wealthy, you're actually costing yourself the ability to become wealthier by quite a bit because of the depreciation. And we'll go into investments versus other types of money spending in a little bit. But ultimately, we have to drop the comparison game. We have to drop, who's driving what car, who has what purse or bag or golf clubs or whatever it is. Now, that's not to say that I'm not super proud of my horses, because I have awesome horses, right? You want to enjoy the things that you have that are your hot rods. So if you want to have a sports car, have a sports car. I'm not saying don't spend money. I'm saying we want to drop the comparison game and have something, because for you, it's a beautiful thing and it doesn't hurt you moving forward. It gives you, we can think of it as a reward for being successful. So I definitely don't want you to think that I'm saying, oh, you're showing off your wealth by doing that. A long time ago, and I'm trying to think, it'll probably come to me after we're done recording, but a long time ago, somebody said in an audio that I was listening to that said, okay, we're going to think about the long-term value of money for you. So if you're consuming, so cars, watches, fancy, whatever, going to Starbucks, eating out, what you want to do, instead of thinking, okay, my dinner was $100 to go out to dinner, have a couple of steaks and a little bit of wine, and not even an appetizer. I mean, that's like pretty lean. You don't want to think about the fact that, oh, it was $100. We, didn't go crazy on it. That was nice. You need to add a zero to that number, because your lifetime cost on that is not $100, because what could you have done with that $100? It's $1,000. So now if I think about something and I go, now that is the most amazing filet that I've ever eaten, I am willing to do that. Thinking about it with that extra zero added on, then it gives more gravity, instead of just, oh, it's only $100. It's fine, right? Just kind of toss it. So what you're spending your money on should be valued more. And what you're doing with your money is you should be trying to create some wealth outside of trading. So we want to take some of our trading profits, and that can be investing in ETFs, right? It can be taking your money and just putting it in long-term equity holds. Beautiful. Can be real estate. Real estate is the number one wealth maker of all time. And we are a little inflated right now, but it's still something to be saving towards. And I know so many people, especially younger people right now, that are just saying, I'm never going to be able to buy a house. And if you give up and don't put money away, start stacking it away, you're never going to be able to buy a house. You've got to get that down payment started. You've got to get your cushion, your 6 months to 12 months worth of savings, so that you aren't stressed, saved up. And so really making sure that you're thinking, okay, I want to go out to dinner or lunch. A lot of times they say lunch costs $100. Would it be better to wait for Friday for that, or the weekend or whatever, and start stacking that money away? So thinking about being more conservative in your spending is something I heavily, heavily recommend. And that will go back to being less focused on the comparison game. So when we look at core values, if my 5 core values are not what yours are, totally fine. You have to set your own. So you can take mine and extrapolate and kind of go around. I actually did a business coaching on this quite a while back, and I probably still have forms and stuff like that from it. So I'll probably pull those together and get them uploaded for you, so you can kind of work through them mentally and be able to score yourself. But you have to decide what's important to you. So if it's family, and then spirituality, and then health, and then money, and then emotional balance, which are what mine are. Those are the 5, little different words on them. But that's been my core values since before I started my fitness company in 2010. And I found myself only focusing at that time on the financial part, because starting a business with young kids, I had pushed and focused so hard on, got to make this profitable. And you like have a financial obligation to your family. If you spend that much money getting something opened, to make sure it gets off the ground, take the time. But I got caught in the loop that we do as traders as well, of this is just how hard I work, this is how many hours I do, and I will work until I'm dead to make sure this works. This is kind of my work ethic. And I see that in a lot of traders as well. I'll just stay at my desk, just keep going. So, your core values, you could even push yourself to do or to select 9 or 10 core values. And you'll be surprised. You think you know what they are, just kind of off the top of your head. Most people, when they get to about the third one, they're like, okay, yeah, that's it. I can't think of anything else. There are other things that are important, and maybe they go into subcategories. I don't know. But I am going to encourage you to just jot down what your core values are and work on this through this coming week. So, goodwill and strong relationships for me as part of my mental aspect, number one, choosing my circle and giving back to something greater than me, outside of me, something that's not self aggrandizing. It doesn't move me forward, it moves someone else forward, which fulfills me. The ultimate thing you have to look at is financial independence means you can live your life without the need of a paycheck. And that's the ultimate goal of what we want from trading, right? To not have to be dependent on a 9 to 5 or a swing or whatever shift that is that's paying your bills right now, if you're choosing to want to get away from it. So, what you need to do in order to consider how you get away from having to have a paycheck is you have to develop a plan of how much money that means. So, how much money do you need to have in savings? I recommend if somebody wants to move to become a full-time trader, if they're not already, that you have 12 months of savings of your expenses. So the pressure is off completely. Your house payment's covered, car payment's covered. If you have an emergency and have to buy a new swamp cooler or air conditioner, depending on the part of country that you're in, it doesn't put stress on you. You're like, oh, I've got 12 months of savings. It's good. Probably didn't want to have to buy that AC, but it didn't stress me out. I'm not having to put it on a credit card because I went into it with a good game plan. So 12 months of savings. I want you to be making 3 times what your regular income is over a year. So 3 times the average over the year before you would step away from a paycheck. Because the first time you have a month that you didn't make as much as the paycheck, if you just trade it out, let's say you're making 10 grand a month in your day job and now you're making 10 grand a month in your day trading, and you go, all right, I'm good, I'm done. The first month that you don't make 10 grand, the psychological wreck that happens is pretty spectacular. So if you have padded it and made it be like, I don't have to make money, I like to trade, and it allows me the freedom to not be dependent on a paycheck. Now we're talking, now we're starting to look more towards true wealth. So you need to know what your savings is, and then we need to work backwards from that. Because it's not just going to be savings, you also have to be thinking about if you're paying rent instead of paying a house payment, you're still going to need to be saving for a down payment on a house, that kind of thing. So you need to sit down and pen to paper and get real clear about what it is you need to do as part of a life plan. And that can be year by year, it can be month by month, but you have to have the bigger picture and then work backwards into it. So by the end of this quarter, I'm going to need to have saved this amount of money. I'm going to need to have, paid off the car or whatever it is. You have to be able to structure into it and work backwards. So you need to leverage your income that you have before you walk away from that paycheck. So that's investing. I mean, it's making sure that you're budgeted, that you know where your money's going, because I see it all the time. I can't believe I spent so much money on those prop accounts because it wasn't budgeted in to say, okay, I'm going to add one prop account. Every time I take a withdrawal, it allows me to be able to fund more money into it to add another one. You just see all of a sudden there's 200 grand in props or something crazy. I've seen some numbers that were out of hand. And the idea is, if you know your budget and you're paying attention to where you're going, that the old saying is, if you mind your nickels and dimes, your dollars will take care of themselves. being aware of where your money's going is going to be super important. So you need to know your net worth, you need to know cash flow, that kind of thing. So if you've got rental income properties, if you have investment accounts that are paying dividends, you need to have all of that. And it seems a little, I guess the word I want to use is condescending to say that, but it's not. I know so many people who don't know how much money they're actually making and how much is actually coming out between all of that. They just know that there's the bank account's always in the positive, so they're fine and it's good. And it's that concept of I make enough. But can we streamline it? Can we really have it become something that works for you? So, what does my life look like 30 years from now is where you need to start. And this is a hard subject for a lot of people. 30 years from now, I'm going to be close to 80. So 30 years from now, if you're 25 right now, you're going to be 55. You'll be older than I am right now. What do you want that to look like? And then you break it down to, okay, so in 15 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, you really need to know your 5 year, 2 year, 1 year by the back of your hand, where you can just recite, here's what the game plan is, and then you're sticking to it, because you're going to wake up in 30 years and go, damn, I still have to work for a paycheck because I didn't buckle down and not play that comparison game, the money trap of spending money earlier when I could have. So when we go into spiritual, number 2, you have to have something that refuels your battery. And that can come from one, which is your relationships and your purpose, but connection with some type of higher power, higher energy. That can be a God from a religion, that can be the sunshine and the energy from the universe. It can be pretty much anything that is going to give you energy and fuel. And for me, it's getting outside. I have to get outside and I have to be in nature, regardless of all the other things that I do within my life, that between spiritual and fitness and all that stuff. I have to have peace and quiet outside where I'm not looking at buildings, or I have a problem. So I can't connect from a spirituality perspective very well in a very structured environment. So I can't be inside a building staring at screens and be like, okay, I'm just going to pray, whatever that is. And we're all so different in how that works. I have to feel that connection with live growing things around me. And that can be other people, just not a bunch of concrete and walls. I'll just put it that way. So meditation is something that people have told me for years. Oh, okay, you should meditate. You're a very high energy personality, and that's stressful, and it's not so good, and it's going to cause you problems later. The problem is meditation, if I sit there and try to clear my mind, actually stresses me out way worse than focused, deliberate attention to a specific subject. So for me, I think about meditating as I'm going to focus on one thing that I'm wanting to work on and get it resolved, or at least really give it my full attention to see if it can be resolved, or to see if it can be planned out, or whatever that is. So you have to make sure that you're not just doing something because you're not going to sit and say Om, right? Because you feel dumb doing it. That's me. I can't do it. But if I can take that slow time, take deliberate, dedicated time, and go, okay, I've been really wanting to figure out how we're going to, and then fill in the blank. And for a while, that was starting up the new business for the electrical contracting. It's different at different times in your life, but it was something that had gotten pushed for a while. And so I needed to take that time in, okay, what's my structure around this? And then because you've got that resolution of, okay, at least I have a game plan, now I'm going to do some breath work. So that might be just some deep breathing. I have an app on my phone. I think it's called Calm, and it's like their free meditation. That's the only way I can technically clear my mind, and I use that in the loosest of terms. But it is breathing practice that will help with your stress levels immensely. because we sit at desks like stressed out, right? And it shouldn't be that stressful if you're not oversized, but there is still, we're stationary. So some focused breath work can be used as meditation, and box breathing, 4 counts in, 4 count hold, 4 count out, 4 count hold, is really hard to do. And you can change all those settings inside that app. It will change a lot. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to challenge you to try out some breathing practice at your desk. So that we're going to move from that into the physical aspect, because I'm convinced, and I've been a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer since 2006. I'm convinced that at least half of the benefit from exercise is the breathing that happens, the elevated breath that happens with elevated heart rate. And yes, you do need to have increased muscle mass. You need to make sure your cardiovascular system is able to handle more before it goes into labored or heavy breathing. But I think some of the benefit is just the breath as part of stress relief. So when we're looking at fitness, we want to be using that as a reminder of the deep breath. So that extra like inhale, the sniff, the kind of breath that you would do in breath practice actually helps with exercise, gives you a little bit of endorphins sometimes. And boy, do we all need more endorphins here and there. So the single most impactful medicine for a human is your physical health. That is moving more, eating things with single ingredients, right? So not doing prepackaged convenience as much as possible. I am a realist, but not just buying stuff because it's convenient and I need to be able to like rush out to my desk to sit down. Taking that little bit of time to prepare healthy food is not a waste of time. It's how you're going to keep from, and the phrase I used earlier was having a heart attack by yourself because you didn't take care of your relationships and you didn't take care of your physical health. So stepping back and saying part of my deposits in my true wealth bank account are that I take care of me, that I'm taking the time, 30 minutes a day, awesome. You probably need more than that, but if that's all you have, that's all you can talk yourself into carving out. Please, please take the time to get some exercise and focus on eating some healthier food, making some better food choices. So it can be from moving to fast food or to prepared food to one meal a day. I'm just going to make sure I cook at home. Okay. It's not that hard to do that if you make it a priority. Financial. Okay, we talked about financial some already, so we're kind of coming back around to that. You have to make sure that you are responsible, that you own the decisions that you're making financially. So if you're not doing your budgeting, if you're not tracking what that is and know where your faults are, kind of like journaling with trading, if you don't know what keeps tripping you up, it's going to be really hard to get ahead. So if you're spending all of your extra money and it's going into trading and just getting blown, you're not being financially responsible. And I'm not saying you should, if you're doing that, you should give up. What I'm saying is you need to own what those decisions are. Who are you trading for? Is it somebody in your life that you're trying to make the life better? Is it yourself and you're trying to just set yourself up for later so that, money is better later, but you're costing yourself too much money right now doing that? It's time to scale back and trade, instead of a 5% position size, one contract, 0.5% position size, and establish and make sure that what you're putting your finances into is productive learning. So you can be losing and learning and it's still productive. And I talk about that all the time. A well-executed losing trade is still a good trade. A poorly executed, profitable trade is a bad trade. Poorly executed, meaning you didn't follow your rules. You didn't stay within what the constraints are of whatever, stop losses or what, fill in the blank. And we talk about that all the time. So I'm not going to take as much time there, focus on the whole person. But if you are breaking your rules financially, whatever it is, and you know what it is, And if you don't, I bet it wouldn't be too hard to figure it out if you sat down with a budgeting tool. Could be as easy as eating out. We sat down and figured out we were eating out way too much years ago. Way too much. And that could go into like vacations. Like, I'd much rather go on an extra vacation a year than I would eat out that many times a week. Okay, I'm good with that. Knowing where you are is the first most important part of starting a journey, because if you don't know where you are, you don't know how you're going to get where you're headed. And we want to think about this as it's your bank account with all of these aspects, but it's also your GPS. So your plan, that 30 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, it's your map, it's your roadmap, and you're probably going to have to make some adjustments, but how you're not going to end up in trouble down the road. And then emotional. Here's the hardest part about emotional. I think so many people put it together with mental. It's how you talk to yourself. So the term is neurolinguistic programming, NLP. The words that you use internally, the self-dialogue, what you say to yourself about yourself is such a huge tool. So if you have a constant internal dialogue of, I'm never going to get this. How come everybody else does so well and I'm just terrible at what it is? I'm never going to dig out of this hole. If you're constantly saying phrases like that, you are reinforcing where you are right now. So you're going to have to dig down and figure out what that internal dialogue, how it's impacting you. So when you hear yourself say something internally, and it can be you're sitting looking at a screen, you just took a losing trade, I don't know, you wrote check for your house payment, and you're like, damn, that's a lot. Whatever it is, when you think those things, you need to figure out what you're saying to yourself, and you need to rewire your brain, because your emotions about money are going to come back and impact everything else that's on this list. So if you are constantly using negative terms and constantly just in a space that is not positive and constructive, and it's funny because I know people who on the outside, they look like the happiest, most joyous, they're always on their A game, they look great, but internally they're a train wreck, and you're like, I didn't even know you were struggling with anything. And it's because they were good at putting the face on, right? This has to be an exercise in honesty with yourself about the things you say to yourself about yourself. And how you qualify that is, would you say that to your mother or your grandpa or your like somebody that you really respect and you really love? Would you say the things to them that you're saying to yourself? And if you wouldn't, even if you're saying them jokingly, you need to cut that out of the mental game that you're playing with yourself, because that's what this is. This is a mental game. It's all a head game. And replace them with different terms. And they can be things like, I'm ready to do what needs to be done. I am healthy, happy, and financially stable. The two key words out of those statements are I am. Changing your emotion is going to come back to how you talk to yourself in many instances, because it changes your focus. So huge deposits in your True Wealth bank account by changing your outlook and your view. So little different style of psychology of trading in today's session, but I've been wanting to put this together for a while. So I'm hoping it was something that was valuable and useful for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and hop off voice. I have to make a quick phone call, and we will be back to trading shortly. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we'll see you soon.